Well, today we're trying to button up the framing here to get ready for wall sheathing. We got windows and doors coming next. We're going to do the framing for that, get our rough openings set. But before we get to that point, I need to do a little bit of finish work here on these porches. We need to close off the gabled end where the wall on the house comes up to meet the porch so we can sheathe that and run our steel siding right on up to the roof on the porch. All right, let's go around to the front porch here and we'll get this finished up here. You can kind of see what I mean here. We have our soffit nailer. Our first one ran over. We're going to run this next one over, get our marks 2 foot on center on up, and then run a level over, get our line, and get the rest of this framing in front side. It shouldn't take too long. Looking back on this part of the project here, I think there would have been a better way to do this framing. I think with those posts, we should have extended those right on up to the roof line, similar to what you do on the gable end of the house. But we neglected to do that during the planning phase, and when I bought these posts over a year ago, just wasn't thinking that far ahead. So we came up with this framing idea, which I think is going to work just fine. It's just a little more work doing this, and in the end, I think the finished product is going to end up being the same. But this all worked out really well. It was a little bit tricky having, you can see there, I had a little 8-legged friend up there with me. But this part of the project was a little bit tricky in that I'm on the front face of that post and then behind the rafter. So we did plan that when we did the roof. We left the rafters out 1.5 inches away from the post so I could run these framing members over and it would be plumb straight up with the wall, and it worked out really well. Working by yourself is a little bit of a challenge as well. Getting these up there, you have to put some screws in to hold things, and you just don't have enough arms and hands to do it all. So you have to use some creativity to make things easier. But yeah, all we did here was tie this framing into the post and then tie it into the rafter on the side. Pretty easy to do. It didn't take much, but and you would think being under this roof, kind of out in the open in the shade, it would have been nice and cool under there. But as you can see, I am just a sweaty mess during this part of the project. There was like zero air moving. It was super humid out, and yeah, I soaked my shirt. It looked like I was at the pool by the time we were done. But nonetheless, this was an important part of the framing to get done so we can get ready for our wall sheathing. I really want to get this thing dried in. I really want to get the wall sheathing on and get the weather off of these boards. They've only been out in the weather a couple of months, so it's not like they're rotted and deteriorating, but I would like to get the sheathing up and get this thing closed in and get the exterior steel on and get the finishes done. I'll feel a lot better. There's always, at least with the garage, a little bit of anxiety just to get things done, to push hard. And I think, learning from the previous build and learning what I know now on this build, taking breaks and not trying to push so hard to get things done makes the process a little more enjoyable. Here we're just putting a little bit of blocking in, just a chunk of 2x6 here to put on the side of the rafter so I have some surface area to nail the OSB off as we run it up. And that wraps up this phase of the build. Easy peasy. Today we are going through and trying to button up the framing here. We're putting our bottom grade board on, or our bottom girt, so we can get ready for wall sheathing. And I'm doing mine a little different. I didn't put the foam tape at the bottom to seal up the crack. Now that I have a couple of boards up, I'm seeing how rough the concrete really is. And there's some pretty big gaps. And I think a better way to take care of that is to use the spray foam that comes in the little cans, the crack fill stuff, and just go along on the inside. We're gonna fill that in with the foam, and then we'll come back around on the outside with the leftover liquid flashing that we have for our zip sheathing and just liquid flash the outside of it. And I think that'll get us a really good seal. But dealing with this really rough concrete on the outer edge is a challenge, and we have some pretty big gaps. So I think that'll work. We're gonna get the rest of these grade boards up, bottom girts, and then we need to start our door and window framing. Next is framing for the doors. We're gonna start with this patio door in the back. We have a rough opening of 75 inches by 98.25 high. This is an 8-foot door, and it's gonna go right here. Whoa, 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 whoa. 7 by 8-foot garage door. Really would have been sweet to have an all glass garage door here, but unfortunately our budget didn't allow for it, so we had to change that. We're gonna go with some French style patio doors. I'll explain what I'm doing here in a minute, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time to talk about budgets. I don't know if you caught on that blueprint shot there that originally we had planned for a 7 by 8 garage door, all glass garage door in the back, and the budget just didn't allow for it. Since we're really trying to keep the banks out of this build and pay as we go, budgets can be tight. So we really have to be cognizant of where we're spending our money and our wish list. Yeah, some things get left off on the build, while other things, that we think are more important, we're going to go ahead and do. And the garage door just wasn't that important. So we're going to go with the French style patio doors on this opening. They're going to be 8 foot tall, 6 foot wide, 2 3-foot wide doors, and I think it'll be really nice. And then we'll have 2 big windows flanking it on the left and right. But all we're doing here is getting the rough opening set. We have to cut that top girt board out. We had originally cut this space in so we could get some materials in and out of the building easy, and didn't know the exact rough size. Now we're getting a little more accurate here and getting this opening prepped to what our supplier said the rough opening should be. And I'm just using the level here to make sure we get everything nice and plumb. This is a pretty easy part of the project to do. We'll get our bottom girt board up here as well and get it cut out and get everything all framed in. So this was a nice part of the project. I hope it works out because we don't have these doors yet. They're probably a couple of months before they come in. They're going to be Douglas fir wood doors. So I hope we don't regret that decision, but we wanted them to match the timbers on the porch as well. And since they're going to be out of the weather for the most part, I thought it would be okay to go with an all wood door. But time will tell. We'll see. Now we're getting this rough opening to the actual dimension that the supplier wanted. And we're just nubbing off all these girt boards. And then this top girt board has to come off as well. And then we can begin framing the opening, which is pretty easy to do as well. I think this is a rock solid way of doing the doors. I did the garage door the same way. If you haven't seen that video, you can go back and watch it, but it turned out really nice, so we're going to do the same for this part of the project. So far this doorway is working out pretty good. We have a 2x6, some blocking up here for the top of the door. We had to cut in a little rip down a 2x4 to put in there to fill that in. Not a big deal because the door doesn't really get fastened to that. Next, we're gonna run some 2x6s down for the side. And what I do with these doors is I put a block here and then I put 2 anchors, concrete anchors in this to help hold the bottom of the door. We'll also run some screws back through the other way to give the door a nice solid base at the bottom. This is probably way overkill for most doors, but we have our 3/8 Tapcons down in 4-inch anchors down into the concrete. So this block is anchored down and then this girt board is anchored into the side of this block. Now we'll come up with our rough opening, our vertical stud, our 2x6 will run straight up. Then eventually when we get to the inside and finish it off, another girt board will come on the inside and that'll really lock this down. It's not gonna go anywhere. This is an 8-foot by 6-foot patio door and it's wood, so it's gonna be pretty heavy, and I wanna make sure this is nice and solid and it's gonna last. Here's a look at the finished product on the door frame. our 2x6 rough opening size. And then we have our blocking on the outside here. We've got a backer board here to tie all the girts together. And then we have some 2x4s faced on the front to bring our wall out, so we have something to nail to all of our trim pieces and the door trim and steel trim and all that good stuff. We're all set. And that's it for the doors. Thanks for hanging out till the end of the video, guys. I really appreciate it. That's it for the door framing. Window framing is next. It's very similar to the door framing, but there's some extra stuff that I want to talk to you guys about for deciding windows, because there's a lot of options, and I'll tell you why we chose what we did. We'll see you guys on the next video.